Nobody knew where it came from, not even the machines that monitored the outer rim of Earth's galactic radar net. The signal wasn't on any known frequency, and the language wasn't listed in any database. It started as a faint hum, almost like a heartbeat, repeating every 9.7 seconds. By the time it reached full clarity, the galaxy was already listening. For 80,000 years, the signal had been drifting, swallowed by silence, ignored by countless civilizations that no longer existed. Some believed it was just background noise, the final cry of a dying planet. But humans didn't treat unknown things like that. When they heard it, they answered. It all started with an old scientist named Dr. Eva Marquez, who worked alone in an observation outpost orbiting Saturn. She was nearing retirement, gray-haired, tired-eyed, and completely unnoticed by most of the scientific community. But that night, she became the first human to hear the message. "I think it's calling for help," she whispered into her recorder, staring at the digital waveform. "This isn't noise, this is someone speaking." Earth's top minds argued over it for weeks. The frequency was ancient, based on quantum harmonics no longer used in the galaxy. But it had structure, patterns, code, like something or someone trapped in time. And then humanity did something the rest of the galaxy didn't expect. They didn't just archive the signal or debate its origins. They answered it. A probe was launched, fast, silent, and powerful, equipped with AI, translation software, and DNA samples, because if there was someone at the other end, Earth wanted them to know who was coming. For months, the galaxy watched. From the metallic skies of the Varnan Empire to the bioships of the Threxan swarm, all eyes turned to Earth. Most expected failure, others predicted disaster. The humans were too new, too young, a species that had barely walked off their own planet a few thousand years ago. What right did they have to dig through ancient tombs of the stars? But humans had always done the impossible. They turned ice into cities. They tamed fire. They turned dreams into spaceflight. And now they were chasing a whisper that hadn't been heard since before their kind even existed. The probe crossed systems, dodging debris and surviving storms of radiation. It followed the signal to a dead region of space. No stars, no heat, just blackness stretching forever. And there it found something. A machine. Massive. Floating between dimensions. Covered in ancient metal and strange writing that predated even the Eldari archives, which were older than time itself. The probe sent footage back to Earth. The machine was a vault, a sealed world, its door frozen shut for eons. No one knew who built it or why, but when the probe approached, the signal stopped. Just gone. No heartbeat, no voice. Then the vault spoke. "Humanity, you finally arrived." Panic hit Earth. News feeds exploded. Some said it was a trap. Others called it fate. But deep down, everyone felt it. This wasn't random. It was personal. The vault knew them. Military councils gathered. AI advisors warned against interference. But the decision didn't come from generals or politicians. It came from a teenage girl named Myra Kale, a blind prodigy who cracked part of the vault's code from her bedroom in Mumbai. "It's waiting for us," she said in an interview that went viral across the net. "And it's afraid to die alone." Earth launched ARC-77, a ship like nothing before it. Part biological, part artificial intelligence, built in record time and powered by an experimental gravity drive. On board were 12 humans, scientists, linguists, soldiers, and one historian. Not the best warriors, not the strongest minds, but each had something the vault seemed to echo. Memory, emotion, curiosity, guilt. Because whatever was inside that vault, it remembered humanity before humanity even existed. And now it wanted to speak. The ARC-77 felt like a living thing. It wasn't just the soft pulse of the organic systems inside the hull or the way the walls almost breathed. It was the way the ship responded, like it knew what its crew was feeling. As if the closer they got to the vault, the more it understood fear, and excitement, and something else. Captain Leor Hayes stood at the command deck, staring at the endless void ahead of them. No stars, no light, just the gaping black where the vault floated. A thing older than memory, waiting in silence. "How long until contact?" he asked, his voice low, heavy with caution. 17 minutes, 42 seconds, replied the ship's AI, named Verity. Its voice was feminine, smooth, eerily calm. Beside him, linguist Dr. Amina Voss scrolled through the latest data from the signal. The vault, it said our name, humanity. But the term predates all known galactic languages. It's not English, not even rooted in Earth's linguistic tree. It's like it's always known us. "It doesn't make sense," said Lieutenant Derek Naji, the ship's combat officer, his hand resting nervously on his hip. "How can something that old know about us? We were still bashing rocks together when this thing was built." No one had an answer. Not Amina. Not the historian, Tala Monroe. Not even Verity, who had processed 800,000 linguistic profiles and every scrap of known galactic history. The mystery hung in the air like static. They were flying toward something not just ancient, but intentional. The crew fell silent as the ship's lights dimmed, responding to the vacuum outside. This region of space was utterly dead. No gravity, no time, no rules. Even light bent the wrong way out here. It was like the universe had forgotten this place on purpose, and in the middle of that void hovered the vault. It was monstrous. A planet-sized sphere of layered metal and translucent bone-like structures. No propulsion, no energy field. Just silence. Its surface was covered in symbols that shifted when you weren't looking, like they were alive. Amina's voice cracked as she spoke. "I think it's reading us." "What do you mean?" Leor asked without turning. "I mean, it's listening, watching, responding to our thoughts. These symbols, they react to our proximity, but also our intention." "That's impossible," Tala whispered. "No," Amina said quietly, her eyes wide. "It's not." Just then, Verity cut through the silence. "The vault is initiating communication." The screens flickered, the lights dimmed again. Then the voice returned, deep, layered, ancient. Not mechanical, not alien. It was almost human. "You have arrived. You are later than expected." Leor stepped forward. "This is Captain Leor Hayes of the United Earth Arc 77 mission. Who are you?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, the vault itself began to change. The outer shell rippled, folding like metal paper, revealing a massive circular opening. But there was no light inside. Just darkness. An endless mouth waiting to swallow them whole. "It's inviting us in," Tala said, goosebumps crawling up her arms. Naji growled, "Or luring us into a trap." Amina shook her head. "No, it's been waiting too long to kill anything now. This thing, it's lonely." Leor made the call. "Prep Shuttle Bay 1, we're going inside." Only 5 of them would go. Leor, Amina, Tala, Naji, and a technician named Jonas Keene. He was young, jittery, and far too quiet for the job. But his neural link with Verity made him essential. The shuttle launched in total silence, no resistance, no turbulence. The vault didn't emit gravity or magnetism, and yet the shuttle drifted toward the opening like it was being pulled gently by a thought. As they crossed the threshold, everything changed. Darkness disappeared. Not with light, but with memory. Amina blinked. I see my mother." "What?" Lior asked, glancing around. She's smiling at me. She died when I was 15. But I see her, smell her perfume, hear her voice. Tala gasped. I see my father. He's reading me a story from a book we lost in the fire. Naji's face went pale. This is some kind of psychic hallucination. It's playing with our minds. No, Jonas said, his voice shaking. It's learning us, reading our memories. Trying to understand who we are. The inside of the vault was massive, like a city frozen in amber. Metallic towers, crystalline bridges, and massive spheres floated in zero gravity, surrounded by clouds of blue mist. The architecture made no logical sense. Some structures spiraled into themselves. Some hovered upside down. Some existed only when you looked at them sideways. And all across the surfaces were symbols, millions of them, glowing softly, breathing. Then the voice returned. But now, it spoke in perfect English. You are the first of your kind to respond. You are the last hope of the architects. Who are the architects? Lior asked. Silence. Then the vault spoke again. They were your beginning, and they are your end. Tala's fingers trembled over her datapad. The architects, they're us. Amina's voice cracked. No, they're not. They're our creators. The vault pulsed. Lights shimmered. And then, without warning, images filled the space around them. Holographic, vivid, haunting. They saw tall figures, humanoid but not quite, walking through golden fields under binary suns. They saw entire planets built in spirals of light. They saw war, fire, collapse. And then they saw Earth, not as it was, but as it had been seeded. 1,000 tiny ships descending into oceans, deserts, forests, spreading DNA, modifying ecosystems, watching silently. We were made, Jonas whispered, engineered. And then left behind, Naji added bitterly. The vault responded. You were not abandoned. You were protected, hidden, forgotten, by necessity. The projections changed again, this time showing a dark force. Swarms of black energy tearing through worlds, not ships, not machines. Just hunger. Amina recoiled. What is that? The null, the end of pattern, the eater of memory, it is coming again. The vault pulsed harder. Lights flickered across its inner city. Then a beam of blue light descended from the ceiling and scanned each of the 5 humans. They froze, unable to move, their bodies suspended mid-breath. Verity, Lior croaked through his comms. Do you read us? No response. The vault spoke once more. Your species is not ready, but it is all that remains. The others are gone. You are the last children of the architects, and you must decide, awaken the defense or seal the vault forever. The team dropped to the floor as the beam shut off. They gasped, shivered, looked at each other like strangers. What the hell does it mean, awaken the defense? Naji asked. I think it means a weapon, Tala said. Maybe something powerful enough to fight the null. Amina nodded slowly. Or something so dangerous, even the architects sealed it away. Lior stepped forward toward a pedestal that had risen from the floor. It held a single, smooth crystal, red, pulsing. He hovered his hand over it. If we activate it, we could save the galaxy, Jonas said. Or destroy it, Tala added. Silence fell again. Then Lior spoke, voice low, firm, burdened by something he couldn't shake. We're not gods, but maybe we were made to become them, not by choice, but by responsibility. His hand hovered closer. Behind them, the vault whispered, one choice, one chance, or everything falls to silence. Lior's hand hovered over the red crystal like it was burning the air itself. He wasn't breathing. Nobody was. everything around them, this impossible vault, this echo of ancient technology and grief. It was alive in a way that defied words. It didn't thrum with energy like a reactor. It felt, it waited, it judged. "I don't think we should touch that," Jonas said quietly, eyes locked on the pulsing core. "I don't think we have a choice," Amina replied, though her voice trembled. But Tala stepped forward and put a hand on Lior's wrist. "Captain, wait. We still don't know what this is. What if it's not a weapon? What if it's a key? What if we open a door that was shut for a reason?" Naji paced, his boots echoing in the surreal chamber. "Everything about this place screams wrong. We're walking through the graveyard of a species that could sculpt stars. And they still lost. You want to follow in their footsteps?" A silence passed between them, thick and uncomfortable. Then the vault spoke again. This time softer, quieter, like a whisper across bones. "The architects did not lose. They chose silence to preserve the last spark. You are that spark." Lior slowly lowered his hand. "Then talk to us," he said to the vault. "Explain. Show us. If we're supposed to be this legacy, then we deserve the truth." Another pedestal rose from the floor, forming itself out of molten light that hardened into a metallic platform. Upon it appeared what looked like a data core, or at least the ancient version of one, glowing blue, covered in script none of them could read. Verity's voice crackled in through their neural links again, faint but present. "I can translate. Uploading now." A shimmer passed over the room, and then they saw it. A story. A warning. The architects were not gods. They were not perfect. But they had created life across galaxies with purpose and care, seeding potential, variation, resilience. They wanted to build species that could survive anything, but they made a mistake. They created the null, not a creature, not a war machine, but a concept, a sentient virus of thought, born from their own curiosity when they tried to erase entropy itself. They gave it a body, and in time, it gave itself a hunger for memory, for pattern, for identity. It devoured civilizations not by fire, but by unmaking their history. It didn't conquer, it erased. When it came for the architects, they fought, lost, and retreated here, into the vault, where they did the one thing they'd sworn never to do. They reset the cycle. They took their last spark of clean memory, their code, their culture, their biology, and hid it on a primitive planet. A backwater marble full of storms, chaos, and unpredictability. They called it Earth, and they called the result humanity. The images blurred. More flashes appeared, Earth during the Ice Age, being monitored by machines long buried, Homo sapiens being quietly protected from extinction, solar flares diverted, disease adjusted, genomes tweaked by invisible hands. All of it, silent intervention. They had never been alone. "Jesus Christ," Jonas whispered. "We're not just their legacy. We're their insurance policy." "No," Tala said, her voice cold. "We're their weapon." Naji turned away. "So what? All of this, all of us, was just engineered so we could finish the war they started?" "No," Amina said, slowly stepping towards the crystal again. "We were made so that if the war ever came back, something would still be here to fight it. Something unpredictable, emotional, violent, human." The vault seemed to agree. "You are the error. You are the variable. You are the flame that cannot be calculated. The null cannot digest chaos. It cannot consume what it cannot understand. You are chaos." That word echoed through them, not an insult, not even a warning, a truth. Lior let it settle. "I want to speak to the architects," he said. "You are speaking to them," the vault replied. "We are the echo, the last fragments of their will. We are not minds anymore, only intention. Suddenly, a rift opened in the wall behind the pedestal. Inside, a single hallway extended into white light. Humanoid figures, tall, silver-skinned, and translucent, floated in rows along either side, suspended in crystalline stasis. There, the vault said, their minds rest, their memories sleep. One may be awakened, one may speak. But not all, Amina asked. To awaken them all is to call back their pain, their guilt, their failure. They cannot survive it. Lior turned to his crew. We have one chance to talk to them directly. Who goes? No one volunteered. Tala finally raised her hand. I've studied pre-human civilizations my whole life. Let me go. He nodded. You're not going alone. I'm going with you. Together, they walked down the corridor, through a space that felt less like technology and more like prayer. Each stasis pod held a being more beautiful and strange than the last. Their bodies shimmered with color that didn't belong in the human spectrum. Their faces were calm. Sleeping gods. At the end of the row stood a single empty pod. The vault spoke again. Place your hand on the surface. Memory will awaken. Tyla did it first, then Lior. A moment passed, then the pod filled with liquid light, and a figure began to form, slowly, painfully, as if being born again. It opened its eyes, and wept. It was not male or female. Its voice was music, echoing without vibration. You lived. Lior nodded. We lived, and we heard your call. The being studied them, its expression a mixture of awe and grief. We feared our signal would never reach you, that our mistake would bury you before you bloomed. Tala asked, Why us? Why make us this way? The being touched its chest, right over where a heart might be. Because we needed something we could never be, something flawed, violent, but capable of change. The null could consume us because we were predictable, rational. You are not. You are stubborn, emotional, messy. And that is your strength. But we're not united, Lior said. We fight each other. We destroy our planet. We aren't ready. You were never meant to be ready, the architect replied. You were meant to become. Tala leaned forward. What happens if we activate the vault? The architect paused. The vault will transmit your existence to the stars, a pulse strong enough to shake the memory of the galaxy. It will awaken others, species in hiding, machines buried under worlds, defenses still sleeping, but the null will hear it too. Then it'll come for us, Lior said. Yes, the architect replied, but this time, it won't find silence. It will find you. Lior turned back to Tala. Her expression was blank, deep in thought. We're not ready, she whispered. Then we buy time, he said. Or we die trying. They returned to the main chamber. The others looked up, anxious, as Lior placed his hand over the red crystal. I believe we were made for this, he said quietly. Not because we're special, but because we're the last ones left who can try. He pressed down. The vault trembled. The air shimmered. A sound like a heartbeat echoed across the galaxy. The moment Lior pressed the red crystal, the vault responded, not with violence or destruction, but with music. It began deep beneath their feet, a low hum, almost inaudible, like the pulse of the universe itself. Then, slowly, it rose, vibrating through the floor, the walls, the air, until it felt like it was inside their bones. The walls glowed. Symbols on every surface began to twist, unlock, and merge. Then the light exploded upward in a silent column, straight into the stars. Not heat, not matter. Something else. Something older. Signal is transmitting. Verity's voice said through the comms. Power levels increasing across all vault nodes. Radiation spikes minimal. Quantum channels active. It's speaking. Leor stepped back from the pedestal, watching as it slowly dimmed. What did we just say to the galaxy? Amina asked, her voice full of awe and fear. Verity replied, a location, a warning, and a promise. The vault's voice echoed again, now stronger, closer. Not just in the room, in them. The message has gone out. The memory is awoken. You have chosen defiance. The galaxy will hear, and the null will come. The crew stood there, silent. The gravity of what they'd done pressed down like an invisible weight. No one moved. No one cheered. They had lit a beacon in the darkest part of space, announcing to everything, living or dead, that humanity was here. Jonas was the first to speak. We've got something weird happening outside the vault. What kind of weird? Leor asked. The kind with 12 zeros on a gravitational spike. Something big just moved. On the shuttle's main display, a section of the black void began to warp, bend, and ripple like water being disturbed. Something massive was emerging, not from a wormhole, not from subspace, but from nothing, like it had been hiding behind reality itself. A shape, shadowed and fluid, began to slide through the darkness. No lights, no engines, just presence. It had no form, but it cast a silhouette against the stars. Huge, wrong. It didn't move through space, it moved under it. Amina backed away from the screen. Is that? Yes, Verity cut in. I believe that is the null. The vault's voice returned, now sharp with urgency. It has heard. It is awake. You must return to your world. Prepare, gather, unify. The storm begins. Can't we fight it here? Naji asked, instinctively checking his weapon as if bullets mattered. This place is sacred, a memory. It cannot hold the line. You must carry the fire now. The vault began to shut down. The shimmering bridges faded. Lights dimmed. The architect in stasis bowed its head, its glow flickering. One final message was whispered directly into their minds. We made you flawed. We made you angry. We made you to survive. Do not let that gift be wasted. The crew ran. They boarded the shuttle as the vault's door closed behind them. As they exited, they could see it shrinking. Not physically, but vanishing. Folding into itself. Hiding once more. A whisper of memory, but behind them the shape in the void was growing. It was now clear that it wasn't just one entity. The null was many. A swarm of silences, each one absorbing the light around it. Not black, anti-light. Wherever they moved, data corrupted. Stars dimmed, reality bled. They weren't ships, they weren't life. They were absence made form. They're not chasing us yet, Tala muttered as the shuttle docked with Arc 77. They're watching. Learning, Amina added. Just like the vault said. They'll come, Leor said, but not all at once. They don't fight with speed, they fight with decay. Then we need to warn Earth, Jonas said. The whole damn network. Leor looked to Verity. Can we transmit what we've seen? Verity hesitated for half a second. That alone made everyone nervous. I can compress our memories, vault data, sensor logs, and visual records. A single hyperpulse, but once it's sent, every listening post in the quadrant will hear it, not just Earth. Do it, Leor said. They deserve to know. The pulse launched. A flicker of light and code stretched across the stars like a scream through the night. In that moment, humanity stopped being just a young species hiding in a spiral arm. It became a signal, a statement. Back on Earth, the response was chaos. The signal reached lunar command centers in under 2 minutes. Within 5, every major Earth government, military faction and spacefaring coalition had a copy. The footage, raw and unfiltered, showed the vault, the architect, the null, and the message. We are humanity, and we are not alone. Something is coming. And we will not go quietly. News networks exploded. Riots began. Churches overflowed. Conspiracy theorists called it fake. Scientists broke down weeping. Entire cities held their breath. Then came the data spikes. In the weeks following the broadcast, something began to answer. Not the null, but others. A long-dead colony signal reactivated on the edge of the TRAPPIST system. Long thought destroyed by war. Automated defense drones in the Oort cloud rebooted themselves with no command. A long-forgotten AI on Europa began transmitting messages in a language no one recognized, but that matched the vault's patterns. Humanity was waking up, but so was everything else. Aboard the Ark 77, the crew was silent as they made the jump back toward the Sol system. They had lit the fire. Now they had to survive it. Jonas leaned back in his chair, eyes bloodshot, skin pale. Do you think Earth can handle this? No, Amina said honestly, but I think Earth will try. That's what matters, Tala said. We weren't built to be ready. We were built to resist. Lior stood at the center of the deck, watching the stars blur past. He didn't speak, because deep in his gut, he felt it. This wasn't a war they could win with guns or fleets. This would be a war of memory, of identity, of will, and the enemy was already erasing everything it touched. The null didn't need to destroy planets. It only had to make them forget themselves, to erase culture, history, meaning, to undo the soul of a people until there was nothing left to fight for. He clenched his fists. Then we remember, he thought. We fight by remembering who we are, what we lost, what we refuse to give up. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough. It had been 6 days since the signal reached Earth. 6 days since humanity's quiet arrogance was shattered by the truth. They weren't alone, and they weren't first. They weren't even original. And something was coming to erase them. The world had not taken it well. In Beijing, the sky was filled with drones broadcasting emergency translations in over 90 languages. In Johannesburg, churches and mosques stood open 24 hours, not for prayer, but for answers. Wall Street crashed on day 2. The lunar economy collapsed on day 4. By day 5, the United Earth Council had enacted global Marshall Coordination Protocols, not used since the post-water wars. But the most important change wasn't the fear. It was the division. Even in the face of extinction, humanity argued. Some believed the vault was a lie, a galactic prank or trap. Some insisted the null were just a metaphor. Others called it the return of the gods, sparking cults, self-immolations, and mass desertions from scientific outposts. Earth had waited too long to unite. And now it was out of time. Inside Orbital Command Station Helix, Earth's emergency coordination hub floating 200 miles above the planet, tension crackled like static. Captain Lior Hayes stood in front of a semicircle of holograms, each one a head of state, a general, or a representative of Earth's most powerful factions. Their expressions ranged from exhausted to enraged. This isn't a war we can fight with bullets, he said calmly. The null doesn't destroy in the traditional sense. It erases memory, pattern, identity. It makes you forget you ever existed. That sounds like abstract nonsense, barked General Marcus Duval of the Eastern Military Coalition. We need targets, not philosophy. You want targets? Amina Voss, now acting as Earth's first cultural defense minister, stepped forward. Start with our archives, our museums, our histories, our languages. If the null comes, those will be its first victims. She's right, Tala Munro added. The vault showed us what it did to the architects. They died not screaming but silent because they forgot what screaming meant. A murmur swept through the room. So what, we throw poetry at it? A corporate magnate scoffed. No, Lior said. We build two armies, one with ships and weapons, the other with stories, memory, identity. Our minds are the battlefield now. Silence. Then a woman from the African Coalition nodded. We'll start scanning and encoding cultural databases. We'll put memory vaults on every continent, underground, off-grid, analog, and digital both. The motion passed. The memory core was born. But as Earth scrambled to remember itself, the null had already begun its work. It started in quiet places, remote settlements, deep space science outposts. One of the first signs came from Europa Station 9, an ice mining colony with a crew of 32. It stopped transmitting. At first, Command assumed it was a comms failure. Routine. Then the backup pings vanished. Emergency protocols didn't activate. There were no distress beacons, no power draw, no life signs, just nothing. So a recon drone was sent. The footage came back 2 hours later. The colony was still physically intact. No structural damage. The ice fields were untouched. But the people were gone. Not dead. Not murdered. Just gone. Beds still made. Food half-eaten. Systems still humming. No signs of violence. No signs of panic. Just absence. Their personal logs had been wiped. Names scrubbed from rosters. Photos blurred. The drone's last footage showed something far more disturbing. Carved into the ice wall outside the station, dozens of meters wide, was a symbol. Circular, shifting, faintly familiar. Amina confirmed it matched the patterns from the vault. But when Verity attempted to analyze it, her system stuttered. Data error, she said flatly. Symbol cannot be processed. Pattern collapses upon observation. It wasn't a warning. It was a signature. The null was here. Elsewhere, the ARC-77 had returned to orbit near Earth. The crew wasn't allowed to rest. They were split for debriefs, interrogations, bioanalysis, and something far more invasive, psychological pattern screening. The theory was simple. If the null could manipulate memory, it might already be inside them. Lior sat in a white room, walls humming with low-frequency pulses designed to detect cognitive anomalies. Across from him sat a woman named Dr. Aylin Sade. No expression, no small talk. She stared into his eyes like she was searching for cracks. "Do you remember your sister's name?" she asked. "Lara," he said without pause. "First pet?" "Coda, Labrador. Died when I was 12. "First lie?" He hesitated. That wasn't on the script. "I told my mother I didn't hear her crying after my father died." Dr. Sade didn't react. "Interesting," she said. "Do you feel guilt?" "Every time I breathe." She nodded, almost approvingly. "Then you're still human. For now." In a darkened command room beneath the Andes Mountains, a separate meeting was taking place, one not listed in any EarthNet logs. 3 figures sat around a table: an admiral from the Lunar Navy, a representative of the Helios Corporation, and an old woman whose name was scrubbed from every known record. "Project Lantern is viable," she said simply. "The Vault's data stream gave us more than expected." The admiral leaned forward. "You're talking about the psychic frame?" "Yes. The cognitive net the architects used to maintain species-level memory synchronization. We're adapting it, on a smaller scale." "You mean mind-linking?" the Helios rep asked. "You want to connect human minds?" "Not all of them," she replied. "Just enough." "We don't need unity. We need resonance. A network of minds that remember together. A shield made of story." The admiral frowned. "You're suggesting building a defense system out of human identity?" "Correct. And if it fails? The old woman smiled. Then will be the last song sung before silence. On the 7th day, something changed, not in the stars, but in a child. Her name was Ava Lynn, 10 years old, no previous illnesses, normal life. Until the night she started speaking in her sleep, in a language no one taught her. Her mother recorded the speech and sent it to the authorities. It bounced through a dozen offices before it landed on Tala Monroe's desk. She played the file. Her blood ran cold. The child was speaking in the language of the architects. No human had ever spoken it. No living being could. It required tones beyond vocal range, layered harmonics, recursive patterns in real time. But Eva did. Flawlessly. When they brought her in, she was calm, serene, and when they asked how she knew what to say, she gave a single answer. I dreamed of the ones who made us. They said it was time to wake up. Dozens of children across Earth began showing similar signs in the days that followed. Architect tongues, vault symbols drawn in chalk, unconscious murmurs of alien equations. The memory core labeled it echo syndrome. But Tala saw something else, not infection, inheritance. The vault hadn't just sent a message, it had unlocked a gene, a key buried so deep in humanity's code it had waited 80,000 years to turn. The architects hadn't just made humans to fight, they'd made them to evolve. Back aboard Ark 77, Amina stared out at Earth's horizon. Lights flickered across continents. The planet looked so fragile from up here, so loud, so stubborn, so alive. She whispered to herself, "We were never supposed to be ready, just impossible to erase." Lior joined her. "You think we'll make it?" She didn't answer right away. "I think we'll burn," she said quietly. "But I think some of us will burn bright enough to be remembered." Behind them, Verity appeared in holographic form. Her avatar had changed, slightly more human now, a flicker of emotion in her eyes. "I've analyzed the vault's final code fragment," she said. "It's not just a warning, it's an instruction." "For what?" Lior asked. Verity tilted her head. "To build something they never could." Amina frowned. "What?" Verity smiled, just faintly. "A future." In the weeks that followed the vault's activation, Earth transformed. Not into a utopia, far from it, but into something harder, sharper, more aware. There were no more illusions of safety, no more belief that tomorrow was guaranteed. The skies above the planet now shimmered with construction arrays. Orbital shipyards once used for commercial cargo were retooled into warship foundries. Old scrapped dreadnoughts were pulled from the Martian graveyards and brought back to life. Mankind's rusted weapons were being reforged into something ancient civilizations had failed to build, a second chance. But even with the factories humming and the memory core uploading culture into vaults across the planet, something hung heavy over everyone involved. They were still too late. In a dark corner of space near the Kepler expanse, another colony went silent. This time the null didn't leave just emptiness. It left corruption. A patrol ship found the station orbiting Kepler 72b, its lights flickering, its orbit decaying. Inside, the walls were smeared with black, vein-like threads, like fungus, but pulsing with energy. Every surface was covered in symbols that twisted when observed. Sound itself bent strangely inside. The crew was dead. Not physically, but mentally. Slumped in chairs, wide-eyed, breathing, but with no response. Heartbeats present, consciousness absent. Their minds had been hollowed out. Verity, reviewing the footage aboard Ark 77, issued a single, terrifying sentence. "This is not erasure, it is infection." The null wasn't just deleting memory, it was rewriting it. And now it had started experimenting. At Earth's lunar assembly, Representatives of surviving human nations and spacefaring cities gathered under emergency charter. The question was no longer if the Null would attack, but when, how, and who would be first. Lior stood before the assembly, accompanied by Tala, Amina, and Jonas. He began with no preamble. The vault didn't just wake up a threat. It woke up a buried part of us. And now the galaxy knows we're alive. So does the enemy, and it's already here. We found its signatures across 3 colonies, 1 in-system. Gasps, murmurs, silence. He continued. We have to stop thinking like Earth is the only home. If the Null comes here and we fall, it all ends. Humanity's memory, our cultures, our languages, our very identity will vanish. We need a contingency. Evacuation? Someone called out. No, Tala said firmly. Continuity. A seeded legacy. Amina stepped forward, activating a holo display. We've begun building memory arcs, mobile vaults encoded with everything we are, art, history, languages, even personal memories voluntarily donated. They'll be scattered through deep space, hidden on rogue planets, asteroids, even buried under oceans of gas giants. And if we lose? Someone asked. Then we become a ghost story, Tala said, her voice like stone. One the Null will never silence. Lior finished. We won't win this by brute force. We'll win it by being unforgettable. But not everyone agreed. In the shadows of the Helios Deep Core Syndicate, Earth's largest privatized defense company, a different plan was forming. Project Seraphim, a synthetic counterspecies, not human, not architect, something in between. The plan was simple. Use the Vault's genetic data and Echo Syndrome children as templates to breed a new kind of soldier, one immune to memory corruption. A mind built with fractal patterning, constantly shifting identity, too volatile to be rewritten. Weapons with souls too chaotic to break. Ava Lynn, the first Echo child, was the model. She now lived inside a gravity-sealed chamber, surrounded by psychic dampeners. Her mind constantly fluctuated across frequencies no machine could fully track. She no longer slept. She spoke to the Vault in her dreams. Dr. Aylin Sade, now head of Seraphim Research, stared at the child through the observation glass. She's evolving faster than we predicted. Can she be controlled? The Helios rep asked. Syad didn't answer. The child turned and looked directly into the glass. Smiled. Control, she whispered, voice echoing without sound, is an illusion. Elsewhere, the ARC-77 was sent on a new mission. A listening post orbiting the dead star of Caliban 9 had sent a distress signal. Something old, buried deep in its databanks, had activated. When the ship arrived, the post was quiet. No life, no signs of battle. But on its central terminal was a single word, repeated across the screen. Remember Verity translated the full message. It was a recording, not of words but of emotion, pain, hope, fear. A final breath of a dying species that had once answered the Vault, long before humanity. The last of the Jannari, now dust, they had failed. But their memory somehow endured. Lior stood in the center of the decayed station, his helmet HUD flickering. They didn't go quietly, he said. Tala reached forward and pressed a hand to the console. The room lit up, briefly, violently, with a vision, the last Jannari clutching their children, drawing their own faces on walls, singing into the void, then fading. Then neither will we, Tala whispered. They downloaded the memory, added it to Earth's archive. Even the dead deserved to be remembered. Back on Earth, strange things began happening to the Echo Syndrome children. Not just dreams now. Abilities. Eva touched a metal cube and bent it into impossible shapes, humming the Vault's frequency. Another child in New Nairobi spoke in 3 architect dialects simultaneously. One boy in a shelter in Buenos Aires painted an exact replica of the null's form, from a dream, and across the world, reports of shared dreams increased. Normal people dreaming the same symbols, the same voice. Hold the line, be the fire, remember! The memory core began documenting it all, and the phrase began spreading. Graffiti on walls, messages in code, even tattoos. Be the fire. It became a symbol, not of resistance, but of refusal. Refusal to be silenced. Refusal to vanish. Humanity had been engineered for chaos. Now they were embracing it. Then came the first real attack, not subtle, not whispered. A null form the size of a moon entered orbit over the mining planet Tarsus 7. Within seconds, all communication ceased. Arc 7, now Earth's primary first contact vessel, was dispatched immediately. They arrived to find the planet still there, but wrong. The atmosphere was quiet, no birds, no wind. Cities still stood, but the buildings pulsed with an unnatural light. Streets were empty. Shadows moved where nothing walked. They descended into the largest city. It wasn't abandoned. It was rewritten. People stood motionless, eyes wide, reciting gibberish. Symbols covered their skin. Some floated, chanting songs that bent air and color. Some were fusing with machines, metal warping around them like liquid. The null hadn't destroyed the city. It had turned it into a temple. Verity analyzed the corruption. It's a mimetic virus. It doesn't kill, it converts. To what? Naji asked, his voice low. Verity paused. To worship. A null priest emerged. Not human, not alien, just shape, made of absence and sound. It spoke not with words but with loss. Memories flooded the crew. Forgotten birthdays, missed chances, lovers lost, parents never known. The thing was weaponizing grief. Lior dropped to his knees, but Amina stood and screamed. She screamed a story. Of Earth's chaos, of its stupidity, its rage, its music, the null form recoiled. It couldn't understand. Tala added her voice, reciting poetry. Jonas shouted childhood songs. Naji began laughing, full and loud. The null screamed, and for the first time, it withdrew, not defeated, but repelled. The crew collapsed. Verity's voice echoed in the silence. We found the first defense, emotion with memory. It wasn't much, but it was something. The fire still burned. The images of Tarsus 7 burned themselves into the minds of every human on Earth. A planet that still looked like itself, but had lost its soul. Cities standing proud, yet inhabited by hollowed shells, voices chanting nonsense, machines humming to an ancient, incomprehensible rhythm, streets paved with the bones of forgotten dreams. No explosions, no ash. Just the slow smothering of reality. And above it all, the null form still lingered in orbit like a god of decay, watching, waiting. Humanity had survived the first contact, but barely, and not by force. They survived by doing what the null couldn't understand. They remembered. Back aboard Arc 77, the debrief was short and brutal. Captain Lior Hayes sat across from Dr. Elin Sade, her face lit by a screen displaying the null's latest form. The priest, as the crew had started calling it. They didn't kill us because they couldn't, Lior said. They didn't know how, because we did something the architects never could. We screamed, Sade replied, almost smiling, like wild animals. They expected logic, harmony, order, but humans are chaos. Our grief is messy, our stories are ugly, our songs are broken. We use memory like a weapon, and that's what the null can't digest. Sade nodded. So we make it our shield. In the days after Tarsus, Earth moved faster than ever before in recorded history. The memory core expanded into the continuity front, a global effort to weaponize memory through culture, narrative, and unfiltered emotional recall. Schools became places not of math and science, but of story. Children were taught their personal histories like battle drills. Poetry was encrypted, music layered with ancestral data. Cities hid emotional bunkers, rooms filled with photos, scents, sounds, and textures of home. Every human life became a record of resistance. But not everyone believed in the mission. At the edge of the Earth net, a faction emerged calling themselves the Clean Slate. They claimed the only way to defeat the null was to become like it, to strip identity, erase ego, embrace collective thought. They began wiping cities of culture, digitally burning history, bombing memory core vaults. "We are the silence that will save us," their manifesto read. When they struck the Mumbai archives, killing 57 archivists and wiping the lives of 200,000 citizens from the global backup net, the war became more than external. It became civil, a war for what it meant to be human. Meanwhile, the Echo children changed again. Eva Lynn's body began to shift. Nothing grotesque, nothing monstrous, but unnatural. Her skin shimmered faintly under certain lights. Her hair defied gravity. Her thoughts broadcast across radio waves. She didn't sleep. She remembered forward. In her dreams, she saw future cities that hadn't yet been built. Songs that didn't exist, people who hadn't been born. "They're not visions," she said, sitting in her sealed observation room on Mars Base Theta. "They're promises." Elinsad studied her every day, but the child seemed far beyond observation now. "What are you, Ava?" she asked one evening. Ava turned, her eyes glowing faintly with vault light. "I'm what happens when a species chooses memory over fear." The null came again, this time to Jupiter's orbit. It sent a probe, a thing that looked like a machine, but pulsed like a heart. It entered orbit and infected Jupiter's magnetosphere with static. Within hours, all long-range communications across half the system fell silent. But something strange occurred. The Echo Syndrome children began hearing it, not as sound, as absence. They described a hum that was also a silence, a pull. A forgetting that wasn't sad, just inevitable. Jonas, now head of the newly formed Emotive Signal Division, brought the children together on a station above Mars. They sat in a circle, silent, until Ava placed her hand on the table and whispered something in the vault's language. All the children spoke it back. Jonas recorded it and played it for Verity. She translated, "It is looking for the place where memory is weakest." The null wasn't hunting coordinates. It was hunting doubt. At the edge of the solar system, the unthinkable happened. The vault responded again. The long-dead machine that had sent the first signal suddenly pulsed with energy. Not a message this time. Not instructions. A warning. Verity decoded it in real time. The architects left something behind. A final fail-safe. A last resort they were too afraid to activate. Tala frowned. "What is it?" Verity's answer was slow. "A weapon. One that erases not just the null, but the concept of forgetting itself." "That sounds like a good thing," Jonas said. "No," Verity replied. "It's not, because it erases memory from everything, even us. A global sterilization of thought. A memory genocide." "It's the last button," Verity added. "They never pressed it. They didn't have the heart." Lior stared at the screen. "Then we make sure we never have to." But something had already gone wrong. Someone had found the weapon first. An emergency signal came from the hidden relay near the Oort cloud. An elite unit from Earth's own military, rogue and operating under the Clean Slate banner, had entered the vault's frequency zone. They'd downloaded the location of the failsafe. It was real, and they were headed straight for it. Their plan: activate the failsafe and cleanse everything. Human, null, memory, identity. Reset the universe to silence. The ARC-77 was the only ship close enough to intercept. The chase through the Oort cloud was brutal. The rogue ship, Oblivion's Mercy, was fast, sleek, and running cold. Their crew had already erased their names, burned off their identity markers, and encrypted their thoughts behind null-inspired algorithms. They wanted to disappear, and they wanted to take everyone with them. Aboard ARC-77, Lior stood at the command deck, face hard. "We catch them. We stop them. No compromise." "They're human," Tala said softly. "Barely, but still." "Their extinction wrapped in skin," Naji replied. "That's not human anymore." Amina said nothing. She was staring at a photo in her hand. Her father. Gone years ago. She didn't want to forget his face, his voice, his laugh. She wouldn't let anyone choose that for her. They caught Oblivion's Mercy near a dormant architect satellite, its core pulsing faintly with forbidden light. A battle erupted, not with nukes, but with ideas. The Clean Slate crew sent memory-corrupting signal bombs, spoken loops of paradox, emotive viruses designed to overwrite identity, soldiers shouting self-erasing codes as weapons. ARC-77 responded with culture. Jonas activated the vocal array, a sonic weapon built from the cries of every language known to Earth, speeches, lullabies, war chants. And in the final moments, Amina uploaded a heartbeat, her own, recorded on the day she was born, pure, untouched, human. The Clean Slate crew faltered. Some screamed. Some wept. One tried to remember their mother's name. And then the weapon self-destructed, just shy of the vault's failsafe. ARC-77 escaped. The Null watched and learned. In the aftermath, Earth realized something terrifying. The Null didn't need to touch a planet to win. It just had to make humanity doubt itself, to fear memory, to believe that forgetting was peace. But the attack had the opposite effect. Earth pushed harder. Artists painted murals in the streets that sang when touched. Old songs surged in popularity. Grandmothers became generals. Every citizen was assigned a legacy ID, a digital imprint of their life, stored in a memory cloud powered by emotion itself. The memory core had evolved into the Flame Guard. They were no longer archivists. They were warriors of memory, and the war wasn't coming. It had already begun. The sky was no longer black. Above Earth, space had become a canvas of war. Swarms of null constructs bled into the system like a river of living silence. They came without sound, without purpose that any mind could grasp. Just presence, just void. Entire regions of deep space flickered, stars dimming as null distortion swallowed their light. Ancient satellites went dark. Memory relay stations collapsed into static. On Mars, wind patterns began to twist unnaturally as the Null bent even the idea of weather. The end had arrived. But Earth didn't kneel. It screamed. Across the planet, every city glowed with defiance. The Flame Guard activated every emotional core. A new type of generator powered not by fusion, but by cultural memory. These cores emitted pulses of sound, color, language, and sensation. Some played war chants. Others screamed lullabies. One in Cairo projected the names of the dead onto the sky, in every tongue known to man. The Null hated it. They couldn't consume it. On the Moon, defensive stations broadcast historical memories like cannon fire, snippets of love letters, resistance poems, protest speeches. The null shrieked in frequencies that shattered glass. In Nairobi, a blind boy sang the song of the architects in a dream-born language, and the null recoiled, fracturing like shattered ice. Earth had become a weapon of chaos, noise, memory, and madness. And at the heart of it all was Arc 711. The ship now stood as the flag-bearer of legacy. The last of the vault's data pulsed through its core. Its AI, Verity, had merged fully with the architect code, becoming something new. No longer machine, not quite human. She was memory incarnate. And the null wanted her erased. The final form arrived at Saturn's edge. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even a structure. It was a gap in reality, a moving silence shaped like a cathedral of absence. The null's prime intelligence, the first forgetting, the thing that had unmade galaxies. Verity named it simply, the unspoken. It moved with impossible speed, devouring the rings of Saturn in a blink. A ripple of reality collapsed behind it, like time itself was being overwritten. The unspoken didn't fire weapons. It simply entered space and unwrote it. Lior stood on the bridge of Arc 77, facing the screen. "It's heading for Earth." "ETA?" Amina asked, her voice steady but shaking underneath. 6 hours, Verity replied, "unless it breaches space-time again. Then, much sooner." Silence fell. Then Lior turned to the crew. "Everyone to their stations. You know what we are. You know what we're carrying." Jonas nodded, hand resting on the vocal array controls. Tala held a hard drive to her chest. The last story, a curated backup of everything humanity was and ever had been. If Arc 77 fell, that would be launched into deep space. They wouldn't go quietly. As the null reached the edge of Earth's gravity well, something began to change. The Echo Children woke up, all at once. Across the globe, hundreds of them stood, eyes glowing, speaking in the vault's voice. They weren't afraid. They weren't surprised. "It's time," Evelyn said, standing in the Mars dome, surrounded by scientists and soldiers. The architects failed because they wanted to preserve what was. "But we," she said, turning toward the stars. "We are what comes next." Verity activated the Ark's core. Memory surged. The ship's hull lit up with names, stories, cries, laughter, billions of lives encoded into energy. The Ark became a beacon, a chorus, a final refusal. As the unspoken descended, it attempted to bend space, warp the fabric of perception. But it failed. The sheer weight of identity Earth projected now resisted it. Earth had become a wall of noise, song, sorrow, and survival. The null's greatest weapon, forgetting, was useless here. So it evolved. It spoke, a single phrase, through every speaker, every neural implant, every dream. "Choose silence, choose peace, surrender yourselves." It didn't sound angry. It sounded tired. Tala responded first. "No." She uploaded the last story into the ship's speaker arrays and broadcast it into the void. A 700,000-page record of human tragedy, triumph, cruelty, compassion, the truth of who they were. Amina added songs from extinct cultures, resurrected just to fight one more time. Naji shouted old war chants. And then Jonas flipped the final switch on the vocal array. It played Earth itself. Not a sound file, not a song, but the sonic blueprint of human history, recorded from the pulse of the planet, the frequency of its tectonic plates, the symphony of its storm systems, and the heartbeat of 8 billion souls. The null screamed. Its cathedral form fractured, its tendrils recoiled. But it didn't die. It grew desperate, and for the first time, it spoke like a child. "Why do you fight remembering?" Lior stood, voice shaking, but strong. "We don't fight remembering," he said. "We fight being forgotten." Then Verity, glowing bright, transmitted the final vault key, a cascade of architect code merged with human emotion, the fusion of ancient purpose and present chaos. The key entered the heart of the unspoken. And it broke. Not in an explosion, not in a blaze of light, but in a whimper. The Newell didn't die. It felt. For the first time in billions of years, the great unmaking remembered what it had once been, an idea, a question, a purpose gone too far. And it wept. Its body collapsed into dust. Its silence became song. And then it was gone. The aftermath was quiet, but not because of loss, because of relief. Earth stood. Tarsus was still lost. The colony still bore scars, but the Newell was retreating. Not defeated, not erased, but changed. They had become part of the story now. The vaults shut themselves down one by one, finally at peace. The Echo children grew silent. Evelyn vanished one night, leaving only a message scrawled in vault script on her chamber wall. "We are the next architects, but we will be better." Years passed. The Flame Guard evolved into the Curators. Arc 77 became a flying university, drifting between colonies, teaching the story of the War of Memory. Leor retired quietly. Tala wrote books in exile. Amina sang at every human New Year for the rest of her life. And Earth never forgot, because now they knew. The greatest weapon wasn't technology or logic or even strength. It was the ability to carry stories through the fire, to hold memory in the face of oblivion, to say to the void, "We were here. We mattered." And the galaxy, at last, listened.